Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021, and welcome to our webinar. It is that time of year again when we are starting to set goals for the next 12 months. And even though we don't need to wait for the beginning of a calendar year, it's still a great time to commit or recommit to those money goals and intentions that you may have set. As we put 2020 in a rearview mirror, we really learned last year that sometimes circumstances beyond our control can be the reason we don't meet our goals. Nobody expected the pandemic, and so many of us, including myself, we were not prepared for a global pandemic. And I know that the pandemic has had a lot of impact on people's finances, some for the better, but most for the worse. And if you were not personally impacted, chances are someone you know and love and care about was impacted. So in today's webinar, we are going to be talking all about setting financial intentions and goals in the new year. My name is Katie Bruno, and I am a financial advisor and financial planner with Maury & Quinn Wealth Partners, and we are located right here in Omaha, Nebraska. And I am so excited today to be joined by Chrissy Ford. Chrissy is a money and mindset coach, and she owns her own business, ACE Your Health and Wealth. She's also an author of the book, Creating Healthy Money Habits, that you can purchase or pre-order on Amazon right now, and it goes live next week on January 11th. Today, she is here to walk us through how to create healthy money habits that stick. Welcome, Chrissy.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie. I look forward to this. This is going to be a great webinar.
I agree. Perfect time of year to be talking about this. And we know, Chrissy and I know that there's a lot of advice out there on what your financial goals should look like. Everyone's out there telling you, pay down your debt, pay off your student loans, spend less, start a 401k, build an emergency fund. And while all of these things are important, and we are going to address many of them in our webinar today, you might feel like you have no idea where to even begin. And so that's going to be a lot of today's discussion. We're going to talk about keeping it simple and setting sustainable goals that you can meet over the year. We're going to look at your current numbers. How much income you got coming in and how many expenses do you have going out. And we're going to talk about easy changes that you can make to your spending habits. Then we will move on and talk about saving and talk about investing, and lastly talk about building your team of professionals to help you meet these goals. And so with that being said, I am going to hand it over to Chrissy, and she is going to start by talking about setting some financial intentions.
Yes. So we're going to talk about keeping it simple, talking about resolutions versus intentions. So like many people, every January, you usually set out for a New Year's resolution. And if you are like most, your resolution begins to fade within a month or so. That's a common theme that people have with resolutions. So the difference when we talk about setting resolutions versus intentions is the definitions behind them. So a resolution is a decision to do something better or to behave in a certain way. An intention is an anticipated outcome that is intended or that guides your planned actions. So since we're setting intentions, we want the guided actions. So when creating an intention, we want to be specific, but have a broad focus. So let's talk about how we're going to cultivate that intention. Like I said before, we'll keep it simple. So my theory behind keeping it simple is to get specific about ways you want to achieve your intention. So anyone can write down an intention, but like we all know, it's about getting the results. So that takes planning. So let's say, for example, I have an intention of I want to make more money in 2021. This is a broad focus, So now let's define our enough. How much money is enough and how are we going to get there? So when creating this intention, you'll want to create a step-by-step process that allows you to see your achievements along the way. And once you make these step-by-step processes, keep it simple to reaching your ultimate goal. What's your ultimate goal? I want to make more money in 21. So when you get to the goal setting portion of it, you'll want to create sustainable goals. So when you're creating your goal, what I always say is to determine your why. So the why is the most important part in goal setting because this allows you to focus on your purpose. So, for example, like I used before, I should make more money in 2021. Well, why do I want to make more money in 2021? Maybe it's because you want to pay off your debt faster, or you want to contribute to your 401k. The one thing that I want you to remember when you are setting a goal is I want you to remember the word SMART. So if you want to write this down, I would suggest writing it down because the word SMART means something in the world of goal setting. So what that word means is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So when you are creating a goal, make sure that you ask yourself, is this goal that I'm creating a SMART goal?
I couldn't agree with you more, Chrissy. And I have a question for people who may be struggling to prioritize their financial goals, people who have a lot of goals, kind of like I mentioned early on, where maybe they have a credit card they need to pay off, or they don't have an emergency savings, and it's kind of trying to figure out which one's more important, paying down the credit card that has the 20% interest or building the emergency savings. So do you have any advice or recommendations for people who might be struggling to prioritize their financial goals, or which one we should be doing, or how do we do both?
That's a great question, Katie. And actually, that's something that is frequently asked. So, the answer that I give my clients is that you want to make sure that you put your savings as a top priority. Because here's the thing, you don't want to underestimate the importance of having an emergency savings account. Because at the end of the day, that emergency savings account can be your make or break for consuming more debt. Because we all know that emergencies come up, and more times than not, when that emergency comes up, a lot of people will turn to their credit cards or a loan to bail them out. So I guess in some cases that is a reasonable choice. But here's the thing, if you had an emergency fund that could take on that expense versus going into more debt, it makes more sense to do it that way. So yes, there is a way that you can do both. If you set your budget up correctly, you more than likely can manage both. You can have the means to pay off more debt or put more principal, put more money towards principal on a loan for say, let's say, or even you could put, you know, extra money towards something else. You have the ability to do both, paying off loans, credit cards, or putting more towards them. Because at the end of the day, if you put more money towards your credit card bills or a loan, you're shortening the length of your loan. Therefore, you're paying less interest and you're shortening the time frame. So you are in a sense, saving more money for your future. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think you nailed it when you said, build the emergency savings so you don't have to use your credit card when you have an emergency. And once you get the emergency savings built up, then, move on to the next goal. So I think that actually leads us right into our conversation about learning your budget.
Yes. So now let's talk about reviewing your budget and spending habits, which is pretty much what I focus on with my clients. I'm a firm believer, and I know not everybody agrees with me on this, but it's really about understanding your behaviors and your relationship with your finances. Because at the end of the day, that's really crucial when you're setting up the budget. And the budget style that I use is the 50-30-20 budget rule. The Senator Elizabeth Warren actually is the one that created it. And it's a very simple budgeting method. So, what this budget entails is you divide your income after taxes and expenses into wants and needs. So, what you're going to do is you're going to take your monthly expenses and designate them either as a want or need and put the remaining in savings. So, even though the budget is written as a 50-30-20 method, that's the purpose of it. The savings portion of that, the 20%, should actually be your priority. So sometimes when I say to clients, I really want you to think of it as the 20-50-30. So 20 is your primary focus of your savings, 50 meaning your needs, 50% of your income is on your needs. And then the last remaining amount, that 30%, is actually on your wants. Okay. Because the ultimate goal is that you want to save at least that 20% in your savings. Because I am a firm believer in cutting back on things. I've said it, I'll say it probably a million times in this webinar, that there's ways you can cut back, but it doesn't have to be extreme with this budgeting style. Okay. So it can be minimal, because in the reality of things, the little minute fun money that you have, like $5 going here and there to a latte or something. I love to use coffee because I'm a huge coffee drinker. And you know that if you go to Starbucks, it's going to cost you $5 for a latte. If it doesn't impact your savings because you have budgeted that into your 50-30-20 rule, if it doesn't impact your savings, you can buy that latte. Because at the end of the day, I want my clients to know that they need to cut back, but I don't want their lives to be miserable. And I feel like a lot of times when you hear the word budget, you have this like negative mindset around it. Like, I can't do anything with my life if I'm set on a budget. Like, that sounds so boring. And that's why I use this method, because there's flexibility to it. And it allows you to kind of move things around so that you're still saving. Because I have noticed more times than not that when I work with a client, they don't necessarily have that 50-30-20 style of saving. You know, they don't have a budget to begin with. So a lot of times they don't even have that 20%, let alone 10% or anything like that going to their savings. So I really focus on making sure that they have that as a priority. And this is where it helps my clients determine what is truly important to them and where they can find areas that they can cut back and or eliminate.
Okay, Chrissy. So I have another question. I have a new fur baby. I got a dog this year. It's one of my silver linings of the pandemic. And I am a new subscriber to Chewy. And every month I get a nice little box in the mail, and it has a dog treat and a toy. And I love this because it makes my life simple. I don't have to go to the store to buy it. It's free shipping. It's on a subscription, and it adds joy to my fur baby. So if I understand you correctly, you aren't telling me not to have this subscription or that I can't have that latte at Starbucks, but you're asking me to decide which ones add value or joy to my life.
Yes. Katie, that is correct. So if your fur baby is like your life and that Chewy subscription is really important to you, then we would definitely categorize that It's still your wants category. It's not necessarily a need, like it's not housing and things like that, but it is a want that you want every month. So you could still have that subscription. It's just going to be a priority in your wants category. It's all within reason. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about now the cutting back. So the key to the 50-30-20 rule is, like I've said before, always starting with the savings portion and putting at least the 20%. So whether that means that you're putting that 20% towards your debt repayment, an emergency savings fund, or Katie, you can definitely say this is in agreement here, your 401k. Planning for your future is huge. Okay, so what I say when cutting back is that you should never have in your budget more than 50% of your income in your needs category. So, Katie, if you wouldn't mind going to that next slide here. So, this budget is great for really giving you a visualization of your money. So, on that, if you look at the slide, it says needs, wants, and savings. So, obviously, your needs are like a mortgage, insurance, just your day-to-day food, groceries, things like that. Your wants is pretty much that latte and whatever else that may be for you, subscriptions, and your savings. Many things can categorize the emergency, the 401k, your debt repayment, like I talked about before. Okay, so really, when you take your entire income and you plan it out and you allocate where you want your money to go, you would be amazed. I can't even tell you, like, I've worked with clients and their budget style is actually sometimes more of a 60-30-10. So 60% of their budget's going towards their needs and 30% is going to their wants and 10% is going to their savings. Now, typically they say you don't want more than 50% of your income to go to your needs, because a lot of times what they have found, or what you'll find in yourself, is that people are house broke. Most times when I see someone that has 60% of their income going to their needs, a lot of times it's their house broke. And it can still be manageable when you use this method. So if you are, say, for instance, hypothetically, you are that person that has 60% of your income going to your needs, then in turn, you have to remember your 20% for your savings. So we're going to flip it. We're going to say that your 60% is going to your needs, and then you have 20% going to your savings, and that remaining 20% is now what you have for your wants. So even with the 50-30-20 rule, sometimes it's not as feasible to be on exactly 50-30-20 with clients. So that's what I do with my clients, is I create this budget that works for them, that they're not feeling like they can't live their life. And eventually, they may get to a point where it is 50-30-20, and they will find areas to cut back. So I am a firm believer in cutting back, but before you can cut back, you really have to see where your money is going. And a lot of times this happens when people are consumed in debt, that they don't realize how much money that they are spending, just on loans, let alone, their housing, insurance, things like that. So there are ways that you can cut back and really make it a sustainable budget, that you won't feel like you are living a boring lifestyle, I like to say a lot of times to clients.
Or
I don't
paycheck
want you to be
to
bored because I want you to live this way forever.
Yes. Yes, and no one wants to live paycheck to paycheck. So sometimes our needs and wants, I'm just thinking here in my head, our needs and wants may overlap. So as a woman, I often find myself buying clothes. I love clothes. And I need clothes. Clothes are a need. We all need to wear clothes. But we probably don't need to keep buying clothes. So at some point, our needs are going to turn into more of a want by having too much. Any tips for managing this?
Oh, yes. I am a woman too, and I will tell you, I have that same. I mean, we're human. We all kind of fall in this category at some point. So I love that you asked that question. And my favorite part about your question is that you yourself know that you don't need any more clothes. So you kind of answered your own question in a sense. So what I tell my clients is I created that book, Creating Healthy Money Habits, for a reason, because it all starts within us. I will be 100% perfectly honest with you. I was not always great with money. You'll read it in my book that my husband is the one that really shifted my mindset on that. I was that woman that would go out and just buy clothes like it was no tomorrow or whatever I really wanted. So I know that you can create healthy money habits, and I know that you can shift your mindset. So the first tip that I have for that question, and what I also tell my clients, is you have to limit your temptations. And what I mean by that is that you have to make it more inconvenient for you. So in today's world, we have everything at our fingertips pretty much. But as a woman, like, we have Facebook and everything. Sometimes we get engrossed in all of these like Facebook groups, or we are subscribed to all these emails and everything like that. And it's constantly bombarding us and throwing things at us like, we need this, and we need this. Well, I'm not saying that you should go cold turkey on this by any means, but really kind of eliminating some of those so that they're not a constant reminder for you can really help you shift your mindset. Like, I really don't need this. Like, what is this extra shirt going to do for me? I have like 15 in my closet right now. So once you see that, you also, the second tip I say, and I tell people, ask yourself, do I truly need this, or would I rather see my savings grow or pay off more debt? Because a lot of times when I work with a client, they're so stressed out about their money because they have so much debt, that when they start seeing that they can make progress and that they're paying off debt, it kind of ignites them in like, oh, well, I don't need that top because I can pay off more debt if I put that money towards it instead. So it's really about making sure that you are aware of your financial goals, and trying not to really act off impulse. Get a good mindset around it. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. So this 50-30-20 rule, do you know of any apps that I can use or that our listeners can use to help budget using this process?
Okay, so there are a ton of budgeting apps out there. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows it. There's hundreds of them. Okay. However, I do not use an app when I work with my clients. And I know that that might seem odd, especially in today's world with everything being an app, but I find it extremely important for my client to see it. So I give my client my program, and then like a spreadsheet essentially that calculates it all for them. Um, and I kind of am old school in that way, but it really allows them to see each category. It's colored and everything like that. So I've never used an app, to be honest. Now, there is one that I have done some research on that I might potentially have my clients go to. I want to test it out, obviously, for myself first, um, and make sure that it's great to use. So I'm not going to like go out there and say, this is a great app or anything like that, until I specifically know that it is a good app. But I found an app that focuses more on your behaviors to really change the way that you manage your money. Because at the end of the day, if you don't really change your behaviors, even with this simple budget of the 50, 30, 20, you could still run into some issues. So to answer that question, I really don't have a specific app that I would recommend.
Perfect. But we're using spreadsheets. We're not pen and paper.
Yeah, exactly. We're not completely old school. We're not like dinosaur age. Okay. I don't have paper and no. All right. So let's move on to saving with a purpose. So we're going to talk about understanding your why. So I told you it was important to understand your why when it came to setting a goal. Well, it also is important to understand your why when you're talking about savings. So what do you want to accomplish with your savings? So maybe you are one that wants to save for a large down payment on a house, or have a security blanket, like I talk about the emergency savings fund. Or maybe you want to put more money in your 401k or start investing for your future. I talk a lot about creating a healthy money mindset because it's not about tricking your mind into savings, but it's a matter of forward thinking and really being intentional with every dollar that you have. And I know that might sound scary to some, but really knowing your money, because let's face it, many people do not know their money. You know, a lot of people don't deal that much in cash anymore. We have credit cards or debit cards. And so we go places and we're just swipe, 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 swipe. And then at the end of the month, I mean, I've had clients say, it's like a black hole. Like I had no idea. Like it sucked away all my money. Where did all my money go? You get so caught up in this swipe, 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 swipe that you don't even realize where you are financially. So I always talk to my clients about understanding their why and their purpose. So if you are that person that wants to put a large down payment on a house, let's say, what is the purpose behind it? Like, how are you going to get there with your savings? And that's one of the other reasons why I highly recommend using that 50, 30, 20 rule, because it makes it extremely simple for you to put that money away. So I always, 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 and I know there's probably people on here that will be listening because, you know, Katie, you work in the financial advisory area. So people are planning for their future and they're investing and everything. But if you are someone that's starting from scratch or from the basics and just creating a budget, because I will tell you, it doesn't matter if someone is making $20,000 a year, or if they're making $250,000 a year, money problems don't discriminate. Okay. So I always tell my clients to keep a minimum of 2 full paychecks in a savings account. And a lot of times when I start out with them, they have no savings whatsoever. So it's a matter of them getting into a habit of making sure that they are putting that money into their savings. So starting out with them, I always, always, always say establish your why. Because maybe you want to save money for your grandchildren or your children's college or that investment, but knowing your why is what I feel the most important. So having those short-term or long-term goals, so Katie can kind of go into the long-term planning for your future, investing. She is great at understanding that side of things. The short-term goals are just really keeping it simple. A lot of times it's, hey, I want to pay off my car. I want to pay off this. Well, you take out that loan maybe for 5 years on a car, you could pay that car off faster and not pay as much in interest if you really plan. So you're kind of always planning for your future when you are saving with a purpose. And I will say it 1,000 times. I say it in my book 1,000 times. Always make sure you have that emergency fund. Because like I said before, we all know emergencies happen, especially if you're like a homeowner or someone like that. Your furnace breaks, you need to replace a window, or just simple things that you just don't ever know could happen. It is very, very important to understand why you need to save.
And I think it's even important to list out once you come up with your goals, your why, then break them into what are short-term and what are long-term goals. You don't want to put your long-term goals on the back burner. So many people are worried about their short-term goals. How am I going to buy the car? How am I going to do down payment? How am I going to get my trip to Mexico next year? That they put the long-term goals on pause. And then let's just say your long-term goal is, retirement, and then you get closer and closer to retirement and that goal has still been put on the back burner. So looking at your short-term and long-term goals and identifying what you need, and the earlier and the sooner you do that, you can determine how much you need to save to be able to meet a lot of your goals.
Oh, yes. That is.
So let's talk about investing. So once we have our savings, we start investing. And at its simplest, investing is buying something with the goal of making a profit by selling it at a higher price than you originally paid. So it's not the same thing as savings. Savings, you usually earn a specified amount of interest. So you go to the bank, you open up a savings account, and they tell you they're going to give you, I don't know, 0.1% today. But a year ago, maybe it was 0.5% or 1%. And this is fixed for a period of time, or it may change from time to time with market conditions. So investing in comparison means that you take a chance that you won't get any return, or that you're going to lose some of your money, or both. You are taking a risk, hoping that the return is going to be better than you would get from saving, but it's always not certain. And just like with savings, when it comes to investing, we need to focus on our goals. What are we investing for? Are we investing for retirement? Are we investing for our kids to go to college? Are we investing just because we have extra money each month and we know that this is the best place to earn more money? So figuring out what that goal is, and different investment goals are going to require different investment techniques. If you needed the money in 5 years, you would not invest the way you would need the money if you needed it in 40 years. And the one thing I want to say about investing is that people will avoid doing things they don't understand. So they may avoid investing because they don't understand it. But every single person on this call has the skills to be an investor, and we really should put them to work. Saying things like, I don't know how to invest, or investing money is too difficult for me, those are excuses. With time, we can learn almost anything, and I've got some ideas here that can make it less intimidated. So the first and most important thing you can do is start investing at all. And the best way to develop confidence in yourself and in the stock market is to invest small and invest often. And you can easily do this by participating in your company's retirement plan. And most employers offer some sort of retirement plan, whether that's a 401k or a 403b or a simple IRA. Those terms may sound familiar to you. If you aren't sure if your company has a retirement plan, reach out to your HR department and find out. And if you don't have the company's retirement plan, you should be talking to a financial advisor and opening some sort of investment or retirement savings account as soon as you can. How do you invest once you start in your employer plan? There's lots of different options. The most common one that I see is target date funds, and these are mutual funds. And a mutual fund is a investment product that is invested into a bunch of different companies. So instead of going out and buying one share of Apple, let's say you go out and buy a mutual fund, it's XYZ Technology Fund. And in this fund, there are several different technology companies. And so mutual funds give you access to companies in a way that we couldn't do with our individual dollars. If we went out and bought Apple today, it'd be $240 a share, but we could invest into this technology stock where we're putting our money into lots of different companies. And we're also reducing our risk by doing that. We're not putting all our eggs in one basket. So target date funds, back to that, is you pick a mutual fund that's based on the year you want to retire. So you'll see these commonly in your retirement plans. You'll see it says, retirement fund 2040. And what that means is that that investment is set up for someone who is going to retire in the year 2040. If you are more than 10 to 20 years away from that date, it's going to be more aggressive. And as you get closer and closer to that targeted retirement date, whatever that year is, it's going to rebalance your investments to be more conservative and take less risk. So the best part about target date funds is that they do all the work for you. You don't have to go in and pick your investments. They know you are getting closer and closer to retirement, and they're going to get more conservative for you. So that's an easy way to do it. You should also make sure that this fits within your plan. I know some people, as they get closer and closer to retirement, get to be super conservative with their investments, and they think that they do not have time to lose their money. And while that may be true, it might not be what's best for your situation. You may need to take the risk in order to meet that retirement day, or we may need to be invested a certain way to get you the money you need each month in retirement. So as you get closer and closer to retirement, you really should be having a conversation with a professional or doing more research. Another reason to invest in your company's retirement plan is that most employers offer some sort of match. Now, I know during the pandemic, some companies suspended or stopped their match, but when employers offer a match, what this means is if you put in a certain dollar amount, your employer will match a portion or all of that up to a certain dollar amount. So this is truly free money that's on the table, and yet so many people don't take advantage of it. So you want to get enrolled in your company's retirement plan if you're not, and if you are, make sure that you are contributing up to the amount your employer matches so that you're taking full advantage. So if your employer matches 4%, you make sure you're putting in 4%. If for some reason your employer does not provide a match, but does offer a 401k plan or some type of retirement plan, you should still be contributing something. Automation. Automation is important. Get something set up that's monthly, out of mind, out of sight. It happens. It doesn't mean that you're ignoring it, but you've got it set up and you know, hey, this 4% comes out of every paycheck, or if you're going to contribute to an outside account, $100 or $50 pulls on the 15th or the 30th of a month into an account. Every month or every quarter, or whatever works best for your situation, but keep it automated. And automation is going to allow you to participate in what we call in the investing world, dollar cost averaging, which allows you to consistently invest money over time without having to pay attention to what the stock market's doing. Because if you called me this morning and asked me what the stock market was going to do today, I might have said, hey, I think the market's going to be down based on everything that's going on in the news. But guess what? The market was up today. So you should pick a strategy that's based on your long-term goals, and then pick a set amount of money that you're going to put into that strategy. And when you invest that amount, the amount you invest stays the same, but you're going to be buying into the market at low and high prices. So over time, the goal is that you'll have a better investment return. And I just kind of briefed on this about avoiding the hype or the headlines. So when we follow the reports on the stock market, sometimes it feels like a good way to learn about what's going on in the market. But the truth is there is a good bit of noise that can increase our fear in the stock market. And it affects our emotions. When we watch it, we create sensationalism that can hype up in the market for dramatic effects. And it makes real good TV, but it's not very good for solid investment advice. So limit your intake of all the chatter and follow a well-researched, put together strategy. I know our media tells us lots of different stories, and there are real aspects of investing that we can't control, like predicting where the market's going to go. Investing returns, if we look back over history, they have varied greatly and they depend on many factors. And consider the factors that you can control, which is the amount of money you invest, the time you're in the market, and what investment vehicle you're going to be in, because those are the things that you can control that will influence your return. Catch your bad habits. When you first start investing, you may be very tempted to watch your portfolio. I know I have clients who log in every day and look at their account. And when you do that, that's okay. But if you start reacting to every move up or down, that is also emotional investing. And that allows either your fears or your overconfidence. Some people are overconfident in their investment skills, and those things can creep in and they can cause us to do the opposite of investment best practices, like buying low and selling high. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There is a financial advisor out there that wants to work with you. And work with a financial advisor who can help you put those skills that you have to work and guide you through investing for the long term. I know a lot of people say, I don't have a lot of money. I didn't know. I thought I had to have a lot of money to work with a financial advisor. That's simply not true. Keep looking for an advisor. If you don't have one, find one. And you want to have an advisor who is someone that you trust and that your beliefs align with their investment philosophy. Investing is a learning process, and you're not expected to be an expert at it off the bat. Everyone feels comfortable going to the doctor when they're sick, or going to an accountant for their taxes, or a lawyer for legal counsel. So treat investing the same way. And then lastly, educate yourself. Educate yourself. Don't educate yourself in that you're reading the headlines every day, but educate yourself. Teach yourself what a stock is, what a mutual fund is. And these things will help you understand investing over the long term. The last thing we're going to talk about today is building your team. And there are going to be many different professionals that come into your life. And you need to be sure that they are working with your best interest in mind. You are in the center of the circle, and I've listed several different professionals that may be in your life. And when you choose a professional, do your homework. Ask for references. Ask about their philosophy, their services, their costs. How do they get paid? And this should be a very personal process that is a two-way fit between you and any professional that you work with. I know many people think of financial advisors as strictly money managers, people who can make your money work as well as possible, but it's not just investment management. It's about creating financial plans and talking about your goals. Financial advisors and coaches, we are here to help you across your lifetime and to coordinate with these other specialists on this page. Working with a professional is going to help you with the discipline and the accountability. And so I wanted to ask Chrissy a question about her coaching process, and that's, how do you, Chrissy, build accountability into your coaching process? Do you do budget reviews every month? Are you meeting with your clients one-on-one every month? If you could just briefly talk about your process.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Katie. So when you ask how I do discipline, I guess, and accountability, discipline to me is, like I've stated before, getting them to realize that they need to create that healthy money habit in order to reach their financial goals. As far as the accountability part of it, in my coaching process, what I typically do is, depending upon what type of client they are, whether it's a client that I'm going to work with for like 6 weeks. Now, keep in mind that 6 weeks is not in a row, because I allow for the whole month, at least one full month of the budgeting. What I will do then is review their budget with them after that full month and make sure that that budget that we set up is not only sustainable, but they are achieving or working towards achieving their financial goals. So at the end of the day, I want my clients to be successful. So maybe that 50-30-20 rule isn't for them. I mean, for the most part, it is the simplest, straightforward method that there is. But that's typically what I will use, but sometimes we may have to adjust things because I want them to be successful and have a sustainable budget. That is the ultimate goal. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I hit the unmute button and I turned my camera on. So hello, everyone. So that leaves us with an action item, a call to action for you, and that's asking you, what financial actions are you going to take? What goal is going to be your first financial goal or priority in 2021? And hopefully this gave you some ideas or things to put on your list of priorities for this year, and that you got something to take away from this. This is a copy of Chrissy's book. This is what it looks like. You can pre-order it now on Amazon, $9.99, and her release date is January 11th, which is just next week.
Yes, I just want to add there on that it is a Kindle book, a Kindle ebook version. It's the book/handbook for creating healthy money habits.
Oh, nice. So there's even places for questions and prompts.
Yes, that's mostly what it is.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Perfect. And lastly, here is our contact information. I know both of us are happy to answer any questions that you may have. There is a question box on the screen. If anyone has any questions and would like to pull in a question, please do. We'll stay on for a few minutes to answer any questions that there may be. But thank you everyone for attending the webinar, and we hope to see you soon.